You know what you should do? You should follow me on Twitter at Brommer018. Link in the description. Do it now. Hello everyone, welcome along to another FIFA 20 Custom Tactics video, the series where I show you how to recreate and adapt real life systems in the game. So today we shift our focus onto the currently most requested video on the channel, and that is Hans Flick's Bayern Munich Tactics system. Of course, very successful to them, and congratulations on Bayern Munich for winning another Bundesliga title. That takes them up to 8 consecutive titles now, so fair play to them. And first things first, I do want to make a quick apology. Obviously you have gameplay on the right hand side, and I want to apologise for sort of the quality of gameplay that you're going to see in this video. Now yes, I did win, but I was just all game I was just battling with the gameplay, just relentless. It was so horrible, and you'll see it for yourselves. But you know, hopefully now you guys can get a glimpse into why I can't bear to play this game anymore at the moment. Like why I can't bear to do series on it or anything, because you're just battling with the gameplay constantly. It's just penalties not being given, the passes just going completely haywire despite being unassisted. You know, not enough movement, etc. It was just horrendous. It was really poor. So yeah, I do want to apologise for what you're going to see on the right hand side. We get a win anyway, but still it's not the best for viewing. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to the system today. Now, of course, Bayern Munich very renowned for being that attacking force and that possession-based side, and that's really what you're getting here. And the best thing I can compare it to is because obviously we recently covered Maurizio Sarri's Napoli system. So, you know, comparing it to that, what you'll find is it's not quite as extreme as that. Maurizio Sarri does like to play through the thirds a little bit more slower, ensure that the short pass is on. With Bayern, you've got a little bit more of a vertical sort of emphasis here. You've got more of an emphasis on counter-attack as well, whereas Maurizio Sarri likes to work the ball up the field, you know, at all opportunities. Bayern, of course, have an abundance of pace, as you can see in the team here. The likes of Gnabry, Coman, Alphonso Davies, who of course broke the speed record in the Bundesliga recently. So you've got a plethora of players with pace here, and so they do utilise that to their advantage. So whilst you've got this emphasis on build-up play, playing through the thirds, you've also, you know, you're looking to go forward as often as possible, really, and as directly as possible. So yeah, that's what we got. We've got with the 4-3-3 holding here, but there's a couple of changes that you're going to need to make. First off is, as always, we'll change the fullbacks to wingbacks. So both of these are currently left wingback and right wingback. And what you want to do that is, of course, is that they'll get more wider, and they'll also get more further forward, and preferably to the byline as well. And that's always what you're looking for in these systems. When they do play at standard fullback positions in this game, they don't get forward quite as much. And obviously, you know, wingbacks in these sort of systems just tend to play like wingbacks, simple as, rather than you know, be a more sort of like rigid fullback, a bit more structured, a little bit more defensive minded. So yeah, you'll change both of these to wingbacks. With Thiago here, we have him at left central midfield, and that's going to be very important. You make sure that you do that, along with Thomas Muller here, who is actually a right attacking midfielder. So the reason being is that what you'll find with, say, Muller, for example, excuse me, is what you'll find is that obviously he likes getting to those advanced areas, but he also likes to drift wide, and that's how you best recreate that. And we'll look at that in the instructions shortly. But obviously with Muller, he doesn't have a set position, and a lot of people find it hard to find a position for him, and he just essentially just roams, drifts in and out, finds you know, really dangerous positions, and goes from there. And so, you know, that's really the best way that you can replicate sort of Muller, in particular with him rotating with a winger. But of course we will come on to that. So that is the positions done. We can now move on to the instructions. We'll start off with the keeper, and we'll work our way up the field. So obviously with Manuel Neuer, you're going to have him on sweeper keeper and comes to crosses. You know, we all remember that World Cup back in 2014 in Brazil, when you know, he sort of really revolutionised the role of a sweeper keeper. That's when a lot of people started talking about it. Of course, it was happening before, but it didn't get quite as much attention as to when Manuel Neuer played it. He did it to such an extreme degree, and that, of course, does complement the fact that you're going to be playing a high defensive line as well, so he can just help out in those instances. So moving on to the two centre-backs, obviously you won't need to change these. Bear in mind, it's worth noting that here we've got two fullbacks here. Well, natural fullbacks. You've got Hernandez and you've got Alaba. They usually play Boateng. But what I find is that obviously he's quite a slow player. And when you're playing such a high line on this game, it's very easy for the opponent to sort of counter you by, just sort of playing balls over the top. So, you're sort of looking for a bit faster players. And with Alaba and Hernandez, I sort of found the best sort of combination there, because of course they both got they both got quite a bit of pace. They're both former fullbacks converted to centre backs, which is really what gives you that sort of pacey option. So do bear that in mind. Over to left back and right back now. Again, fairly self-explanatory. Join the attack and overlap on both. Now, it's important to note that here they've actually got Benjamin Pavard at right back. Now, for me, I don't think Pavard is really that ultimate wing back. I think Pavard would be better suited to a standard fullback role where he can stay back a bit more. I don't think he has the athleticism, to be bombing down the right. And you sort of see that in this gameplay as well. You'll see me trying to, do give and goes with him, where he sort of merges with the winger. And he just doesn't have the pace nor the energy levels to do that. So, when you are trying to sign a player, do bear that in mind. Don't go for someone like Pavard. Try and bring in a slightly more athletic fullback. Someone, a bit more like Alphonso Davies. The problem with Alphonso Davies on this game is not the athleticism. It's the fact that obviously he's a converted winger. Alphonso Davies has always been a winger until this season at Bayern. And so, stats-wise, his defensive area needs a lot of improvement to doing. So when you are trying to sign a fullback, obviously with Davis, you can train that. If you're in career mode, you can train those defensive areas and getting better at that. But do also bear that in mind. You'll find some vulnerabilities there. So moving on to Kimmage at holding midfield now, of course, converted from the right back role into the holding midfield role when he's just made the spot his own, really, hasn't he? He's been absolutely fantastic. So with defensive behaviour, we have him on cut passing lanes. That's the best way to recreate how they sort of press. They don't go man to man, really. They try and block off those passing lanes. Obviously, you can only do it with a holding midfielder on this game, which is very annoying. But still we have to do it with him when it comes on. Otherwise, we don't really want him man-marking opponents. With attacking support, you have him stay back while attacking. Now, it's not always with the case with Kimmage. It depends on sort of the nature of the game and the situation, as is the case with all of these tactics. These tactics, and I should tell you now, is that they're never set in stone all the time. Every team doesn't play the same way in every single moment of the game. Of course, situations change, tweaks are made, little areas of change, etc. So always bear that in mind. And occasionally you will see Kimmage get forward, but you want to stay back while attacking, because you've got everyone else storming forward. You still create that free with Hernandez, Alaba, and now Kimmage as well. You want that protection, and that's the best way to ensure that. And finally, with defensive position, we want him on cover centre as well. The two central midfielders ahead of him will be covering the wing, so you don't want him sort of tracking out of position and vacating that space. So on to Thiago now. Of course, the left central midfielder in this game. Now, this role changes, and again, that's sort of relaying back to the sort of note I just gave you, in that tactics can change, tweaks are made. So it depends on whether Thiago or Goretzka is playing here, and you sort of see me change that midway through the gameplay on your right hand side. Now with Thiago, obviously an expansive passing range, very, very technically gifted, very good on the ball. So what you want with him is that you want him sort of parading those pockets of space. You don't want him storming into the box, and that's why you have him on stay on the edge of the box with crosses and balanced attack as well. So whereas with Goretzka, for example, you have him get into the box, because obviously Goretzka is more of a box-to-box minded player. A lot more physical abilities compared to Thiago, who's more of a technically gifted player. So obviously then you have him as more of a box-to-box man. You commit more men forward. But with Thiago, that allows you to recycle possession more. So I'd say, actually, if you are playing against someone who you're looking to sort of dominate possession against, but particularly against teams who are better, who are just higher rated teams, like a Dortmund, for example, in Germany, or across Europe, the others of Madrid and Barcelona, etc. I'd say advise you to play Thiago instead, because that will allow you to recycle possession a little bit more. It just gives you a little bit more protection as well. But obviously, as a central midfielder, and rather than as a central defensive midfielder, you get that little bit more forward-thinking nature. And that's something also worth bearing in mind. Obviously, people see this as a 4-2-3-1 with two holding midfielders, but You know, unlike a holding midfielder on this game, unlike a defensive midfielder, a central midfielder just gets forward a little bit more, gets into those little bit more advanced pockets of spaces, and that's what you're looking for. You don't want the attack to stagnate too much, so that's what you get with Thiago here. It's also worth bearing in mind, obviously, he's on cover wing, as will Thomas Muller be as well. So moving on to Thomas Muller next, obviously you've got this sort of wacky role that we don't really have a sort of word for, and that's the guy who just rotates anywhere, drifts anywhere. He's just essentially on his own mission, is Thomas Muller. So first off, we have him on comeback on defence, and that's again fairly self-explanatory. But here on support and crosses, you have him get into the box for the cross. So obviously, again, we see what Thomas Muller's like. He gets into those advanced positions, picks up lots of positions, dangerous areas. And so with him on getting to the box of the cross, you get that replicated as best as possible. Now here's the difference to a normal attacking midfielder. Obviously we've got him on right attacking midfield rather than central attacking midfield, and that's going to complement his drift wide element. So obviously him and Gnabry are going to be rotating a lot, and that's what happens with Muller. You know, he drifts over to all areas, and that creates a mismatch option for the opposition. Do they stick with him? Do they leave their position? Do they go man marking, or do they just stick to their zonal areas? In which case, perhaps you give him a bit more freedom, then you get him on the ball a bit more. So with drift wide, you tend to find that mismatch option a bit more, and it complements Gnabry coming inside really well. So it's worth bearing that in mind as well. So next up we have the two wingers, two slightly different roles. So we'll start with the right winger first. We have Serge Gnabry here. Can of course go with a whole range of different players because they have many guys who can play this role. So first off, comeback on defence, self-explanatory, don't need to say that. And next up you have chance creation on free roam. So as I was saying, he'll rotate with Muller, and that's the best way to get it. He'll come inside a lot more. Obviously you want someone who's a bit more technically gifted as a result, because he will be picking up, you know, a lot more positions. And now with support runs, you'll hear that I mentioned at the start of the video, they still have an emphasis on counter-attack when they need to. Obviously, they like to play through the thirds, and they like to play out from the back. But also, they're adaptive, so they spot you know, gaps and opportunities when they're there. And when the opposition have committed men forward and they have an opportunity to counter-attack, you know, with getting behind, you can exploit that a lot more effectively. So that's very handy as well. And finally, we have him on support on crosses, get into the box for crosses as well. You'll have about 4 or 5 players getting into the box. That, as such is the case with Bayern Munich and how much men they commit forward. A very attacking side. So obviously that plays into that. Over to Kingsley Coman on the other side. A lot of them are the same. Come back on defence, get into the box across and get in behind as well. But this time we have him on cut inside rather than free roam. And the difference with cut inside and free roam is that free roam you can find someone drifting, you know, sort of all over the areas of the pitch. You know, they can drift from right to left, they can come into the central areas. Whereas cut inside more means that they angle their runs. You know, so they when they're running behind, they'll angle their run to direct themselves towards the goal, towards the 18-yard box, rather than coming right into those central areas and really playing up offering an option there and providing a role. So obviously that's just a little difference between cut inside and free roam. And finally we come on to the big man, Robert Lewandowski. Support runs, have him on stay central, and also have him on target man as well. Now I tend to find here is that sometimes this can be more effective than others. So if you want this on mixed attack, that's fine. That's probably the best way actually to replicate Lewandowski's sort of role within the Bayern Munich team. He doesn't really get behind that much, but that's because the wingers sort of do that job for him, as does Thomas Muller as well. You know, so that's sort of why you have him on. I originally went with him on target man to sort of supplement those guys, those runners in behind. But if you do want him on mixed attack, that's absolutely fine. In fact, we will keep it on mixed attack here, just for the sake of this video. And finally, with defensive support, have him on stay forward as well. Don't need to track him back. He is that outball going forward. So that rounds off the instructions. We can move on to the tactics now. So defensive style, we have this on constant pressure. Of course, a gegen-pressing side. They like possession as much as possible, and they're going to get right in your face. Use that athleticism, use that stamina and that pace to really trouble your defence if you're trying to play out from the back. So that's very handy. With width, we have this on 4. So We like to keep these fairly narrow, these defensive sort of shapes. The reason why we don't go to 3 and make it a really narrow system is just so, you know, you can get out wide when you need to, but not to the case where there's going to be so much space in the central areas of the pitch that the opposition can just play through you. So that's very important to note. Defensive line, we have this on 10, just to create a high line as possible. Of course, the fact that the defenders are also fast, other than Benjamin Pavard, which of course I did advise you to sort of find a replacement there, you know, does help that as well. Now, if you're playing online and you find that people are playing the ball in behind you too easily, move this down to 8. It will still be a high line, but it just gives you a little bit more of a leeway. But we did decide to go for 10 with this. Offensive style, possession, you don't need me to explain that one. And then with the width here, we have this on 4. So again, we're trying to keep this narrow to try and supplement the short passing game as much as we possibly can. However, obviously, rather than having this into such a narrow area where 3 and below it becomes really narrow, we have this on 4 just so we've got that out ball going out wide when we need to. We've also got not just the wing backs, but we've got wingers to think about as well. So that's worth bearing in mind. With players in the box, I of course alluded to the fact that you're going to have 4 or 5 players going in here. And that's why we moved this up to 8. Therefore, you've got the 4 players storming into the box there. The wingers, the attacking midfielder, the striker as well. So that's very, very handy. And that's the best way of recreating that. Finally, with corners and free kicks, we always move these up to 4 because then it leaves you with 2 men back, which is more than enough to deal with the opposition counter-attack as they only ever leave 1 man forward. But then you've got extra options in the box on those set-piece situations, and of course they are very hard in games. So, you know, we just try and give yourself as much support as we possibly can. So that rounds off this system then, guys. Let me know what you think of it. If you have any questions, please do get at me in the comment section and I will do my best to get back to you. Keep your suggestions coming in as you always do. And also check out my other videos as well. Check out my real football videos, which I've just started. They take a long time to edit, so I really would appreciate it if you know, you gave those a look. Also check out my FIFA 21 features and stuff as well. That will be coming along the way. And I know we are going to finish it off there. Please leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel as well for more regular gaming content. Don't forget to ring the bell so that you get notifications every time I upload as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you soon.